All right, I'm blessed. Like I said in the letter, I've been blessed to have a short career here, but a great career here, and one from the beginning, hopefully.
Was that a tough letter to write, or was that kind of something that you seem pretty up in spirits about it?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I said this on John Jansen's podcast, so a little shameless plug if you haven't listened to it. Yeah, go listen to it. But I wrote most of that more than a year ago, during kind of one of the harder stretches of rehab, when I was really kind of considering throwing in the towel, and then kind of used it as motivation to push back.
It's a pretty mature view. Where does that come from?
I've got great parents. I owe them a lot.
You talked to your teammates about this throughout the whole process as well?
I did. They've been incredibly supportive. My teammates, the coaching staff, just everyone involved was great.
How close were you to hitting send on that a year ago? I guess.
Got to some points. There were some days where it was tough. There were some kind of secondary things that popped up, not related to the original me, and it was tough. I mean, there were, I'm not gonna lie, there were certainly days where it seemed like it was the easier option and the better option at the time.
Grant, I was listening to the Attack Each Day podcast, and you were on there. Harbaugh said that it's one of his biggest regrets, one of the poorest coaching decisions with the knee brace thing being optional, and that, he obviously feels bad. Was there, and I'm not saying, resentment in a bad, but was there any how does that feel, though, listening to him tell that story, and you're sitting there, you guys are on the podcast, I mean, what type of feelings are running through you?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly appreciate, his feelings about it, but I don't have any resentment towards him, obviously, or towards anyone involved in the situation. I mean, it's a freak accident. That's why they're called freak accidents. And if I'd been wearing a knee brace, it certainly would have lessened the severity. But what's to say I wouldn't have gotten in a car accident the next day? I mean, it's just there's so many things you can't control in life that it's just unfortunate. It was my day.
Grant, when did you in camp? I know you were conditioning everything else. When did it finally for you to say, okay, this?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, we were at the point where it was, kind of looking me right in the face, and it was, all right, do you want to go transition to the field and start practicing when camp breaks? It was that junction point, and so all my doctors met, and I asked them, my question to them was, if something was to go wrong, what is our plan B? What is our out plan? What are we going to do to help fix everything? And unfortunately, the answer was because of the kind of fragile and tenuous nature of vascular grafts, and because of all the the totality of the injury, it's possible there isn't a good fix, and that it was possible that if there was, or not possible, it was likely if there was injury to that vascular graft, it was going to be a salvage operation, involving amputating my leg. So, just having conversations with my parents and the rest of my family, just wasn't a risk I was willing to accept, and ultimately it was the right decision to me.
Did you guys have that conversation last week or earlier?
Or last few weeks, I'll say, or last few weeks.
What's next?
Be here for a couple of years, get my grad degree, hopefully contribute on the coaching staff as a student coach, working with the tight ends, and kind of go from there. See if the coaching bug bites me.
You half jokingly threw your resume out there on Twitter and said you were looking for a job. Did you get people?
I did. It's incredible. It's like you said, I was pretty, definitely in jest, but it's incredible how many people reached out, willing to help me or put me in contact with people.
How much does that lift your spirits about this whole thing?
I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, you had, when I looked at it last time, it's close to 1,000 people had commented, and all just incredibly supportive, and it really shows you how incredible, not only Michigan is, but college football in general. That I had fans from programs from entirely different parts of the country and conferences reaching out.
Grant, do you look at? I mean, obviously, your pre-injury, your football career was going somewhere, but it seems like afterward, you were talking about, like NCAA, you were talking about big picture issues. Do you feel like maybe your football career really wasn't so much about football? I mean, you were talking about bigger picture issues that affect student athletes. You've been political. I mean, you've been, well spoken on issues. Was your football career something more than just football?
I think it kind of speaks to the dual-sided nature of athletics in general. I mean, we want our athletes to be role models, but we also want them to be seen and not heard. And I think having that injury kind of gave me the freedom where I wasn't as concerned about is an NFL team going to be concerned about this guy has opinions, or are college fans going to be concerned that this guy's opinionated one way or another. This guy goes after things that he thinks are unjust in terms of the NCAA. So I think it did give me some freedom that, I wasn't as concerned about speaking my mind.
How much thought? Because I mean, you've called out false media reports. You've called out a lot of things. I mean, how much thought did you put in, going into it, knowing that you do kind of have, you're speaking from within, you do have kind of a experience and influence a lot of people don't have.
You mean going into the announcement or going into?
Well, just like when you're getting ready to tweet something.
Yeah, I
what-
always just kind of call it as I see it, and I guess I'll reference the media reports. I hesitate to use that word because I don't think
And quotes.
the person who represents himself as media is actually media. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, this is a decision that's been made over the last few weeks. The doctors never once said, we want to exclude you from football if that's what you desire. So any reports that came out about some insider information months ago were just completely false. And I don't know. I just if someone feels the need to portray themselves as something they're not and insult the work that you guys do being here, I just think that's something that should be called out. But it's their life. So
How do you feel about people are going to know you probably, they'll remember your football career, but for the most part, I think a lot of people are going to remember you for what you said about college football and the way that you carried yourself. Are you okay with being remembered in college football for not being a college football player?
yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can leave an impact on a place, that's a great thing, and that's certainly what I'm trying to do, and trying to leave Michigan a tiny bit better than it was when I got here. And like we've all said, I wasn't on the field for very long, so obviously didn't have a chance to leave a legacy on the field. So just kind of trying to do anything I possibly can to contribute to the team and this university as a whole.
What's the long-term prognosis for you? Are you going to continue to rehab?
So I'll continue to rehab, but I'm completely healthy, able to run. I don't have any physical limitations, which is ultimately what was the driving factor of the decision. I was at the point where I'm completely healthy. And like I said in the letter, I'll have a completely functional life, and I just wasn't ready to risk that. There's nothing more I want in the world to be back in the field, but it just ultimately when I when the decision was looking me in the face and I had to think rationally for the first time, in the whole process, it just wasn't something I was comfortable with.
Grant, whenever we see you, you're always very positive and clear-headed, and you mentioned that a year ago you wrote some of that, and then some of the harder days maybe you would have sent it. I mean, how much did you grow or change throughout this? And maybe, I don't want to make it think back to difficult points, but I mean, how difficult was some of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly difficult. I mean, there were days where you just wanted to give up and you were just angry, and I've said this previously. I mean, it was tough. Days when you kind of sat there and thought, why me? What did I do to deserve this? I mean, all kind of things that you could would be logical things to think whenever you have a traumatic injury or an illness or anything anything that's kind of negative in your life. But ultimately, I was able to rely on my family and gain inspiration from people like Larry Proud and now Coach Pollock, and just so many people that are going through hardships in their own respective lives, and you'll continue to push forward. So.
You talked about looking ahead, playing with kids in the yard, stuff like that. How important is that to you, and did you thought much about that kind of life?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately the most important thing, and like I said, that's why I made the decision. It's funny because throughout the whole process, I was kind of the sole focus was football, and it was kind of just thinking about it in the abstract, if I can say that. So when it actually came time to make a decision, and it was more looking at it from I guess more based in reality, or looking at the the actual consequences or potential consequences of returning to play. That's when it kind of I had to start to think really hard and think really deeply about is this the best option for me and my family.
How far have the other tackles come from what you've seen in practice?
It's been incredible, the growth all around. From the older guys like John and Jawan, and younger guys like James and Jalen Mayfield. They're all coming along really incredibly, and I'm gonna be happy to watch them this year, and I think they're in even better hands than they were back in 2016.
Grant, often when you see athletes announce to retire, there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of emotion. Because you've dealt with this over the better part of 2 years, does that eliminate that, or did you go through that?
I mean, it was certainly tough. I mean, it's I said in the letter, writing that was the hardest thing I've ever done, and that was true. I mean, there were certainly days in rehab that were just incredibly difficult, but I don't want to say it, I mean, that was just. I'm the type of person who's very competitive, and so I think a lot of what drove me was the fact that I wasn't gonna be just another statistic. I was gonna be the first person to come back from that injury, and ultimately, as much as I put everything I had into it. It's still, there was a part of me that felt like, you failed in this and you quit on it. And it was tough. It was tough to get over, but, I'm fortunate I have, incredible family, incredible support system who were there for me.
But you don't feel like you quit on it.
No, I feel good. I've made peace with the decision. I'm sure I'll always have that inkling of what if, but this was the right decision, and I'm fully comfortable with it.
What else interests you besides coaching if in a few years you decide you wanted to do something else?
Really interested in some charity work, nonprofit work. I've been fortunate to get involved in, on the surface with a lot of great organizations like Team Impact and like the Chad Tuff Foundation. So I'd love to get into deeper into that type of work if that's ultimately what ends up happening.
What master's program are you?
I'm going to school, getting my master's degree in public policy from the Ford School.
Do you have a focus area?
I do not yet.
How do you enjoy coaching?
It's been good.
What do
I'm
they
kinda-
call you? Do they call you coach?
Some people call me Coach Grant. Some people just call me Grant. Some just, whatever pleases their fancy. But it's interesting. I don't like it as much as playing, just because you don't have that control. I'm kind of control-oriented person. But I've gotten used to it over the last year and a half, and just it's great being able to work with the young guys and just kind of help them along any way I possibly can.
You still get a little hands-on with those guys too?
I do. I try to show them I still have it every once and
Okay.
again.
Grant, on the Harbaugh podcast, you were saying it's different. Something feels different, and that you feel that you mentioned something about truly getting back to the pedestal in college football. What is different?
I don't want to say it's a mindset, because I do think our leadership in the past has been great, and I don't want to take it away from anyone in the past. I just think that there's this consensus. I think we were a really young team last year, and I think across the board, a lot of those guys who were young last year, and it was a little bit more, it'll just happen. I think we've realized that you actually have to go in and put in the work, and you actually have to go in and put it on the tape and put it and display it on the field, and that there's a lot of good teams in our conference and a lot of good teams in college football, and that if you don't come out and work your absolute hardest 24/7, you're going to get beat. And I think we've kind of as a team have realized that this is the year to do it. There's been a lot of hype the last 3 years, and rightfully so. We had good teams, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't finish in November and you don't finish ultimately in December.
How do you think Warner has helped this offensive line?
He's been great. It's been great to kind of get back to the roots. I think we kind of, and I think a lot of guys have said this over the past 6 months or so, but just simplifying everything, and just focusing on the technique and on the fundamentals, and I think it should pay dividends for the offensive line this year.
Is it bittersweet? I mean, you're saying you see all this change and everything, and a lot of optimism heading into this year. Is it bittersweet? You're seeing this and you can't play.
It is. I mean, anytime you can no longer do something, it's obviously bittersweet. But I was talking with Pat Kugler, who's now offensive line GA, and back when I was seriously considering retiring, and the point he made to me was it ends for everyone, and that's ultimately kind of what the decision was for me. It was that it was does it end now or does it end in a year and a half, 2 years, and ultimately for me, if knowing that everything is finite and everything is going to end, it wasn't worth taking such a large risk for just to grasp that or chase that dream for just a little bit longer.
And you were saying with possibly one more injury, with the nature of the graft, it could have resulted in amputation.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it got to that point where I was extremely fortunate to be where I am now. I mean, just going back from coming out of that first night of surgery, they were worried I wouldn't be able to walk again. So just as sad as this, everyone thinks the story is, and I mean, as I guess you could characterize it as sad, but I'm extremely blessed to be where I am, and ultimately, just it wasn't worth risking that, even if the risk was, it wasn't a guarantee, but it was still, it just wasn't worth the risk to me.
Right.
A couple more for Grant. And gone through what you went through, I mean, you learned a lot, of course. I mean, what sort of things could you, like advice, I guess, could you give the current players in football or life?
You never know when it's going to end. I think, like I said, it ends for everyone at some point. And when I was telling some of the older guys, guys are, even if you don't get hurt, hopefully no one gets hurt and has a career-ending injury, but the guys are going to go to the NFL or guys going to finish their college careers and not be able to play professionally. It's it ends for everyone, and I don't want to end my career here as a player and then as a coach not beating Ohio State or only beating Michigan State once. That's not something I want to remember my time at Michigan as.
Was it ever an awkward feeling being the injured guy, sort of a reminder to everybody else around of the danger of the game that you play? I mean, ever go through your mind?
I kind of took it in stride. I like to joke with Jason Katz, who was the director for the Amazon series, that I was the token injured guy. So I don't know. Like I tried to keep it, take it in stride, but everyone here was just so great with me and so supportive and just allowing me to still be involved in the program over the last year.
Do you replay the final play in your mind a lot?
It's interesting. I was just talking to Steve about that. It's interesting because I didn't watch the play for close to 18 months. I watched it in the hospital going up to, in the ambulance going up to the hospital, but then for 18 months after I didn't watch it. I don't know if I couldn't bring myself to do it, or if it was just a mental thing that I was gonna play again and then watch it, and then kind of that would be my statement that I'd overcome everything. But I do. I know sometimes I just think what if I just kind of I think where would I be right now? Could I be on the field? Could I be potentially at in the NFL? But I mean, that's hindsight is 20/20. So I try to avoid thinking about it as much as I possibly can and just go to day from here.
Is that a legit play, or is that something that they need to consider taking out of football?
I mean, they have changed a lot of the cut rules, and I think that's good. I mean, you do see a good amount of injuries there, but and like I said, I have no ill will to the guy who cut me, and it was a legitimate football play. It was well within the rules. I still believe it's well within the rules now, even after the changes. So, it was a football play, and like I said, it's a freak injury. I mean, we could probably go out there and try to recreate it 100 times and not get the same result. So, it was just unfortunate, but I don't have any ill will towards anyone.
Grant, I was curious your perspective on Harbaugh. You've been around him a lot more in the coaching room. How has he changed, even from after the bowl game? Because a lot of guys said he's been low key, or
Yeah, I mean, I think as I talked about the team growing, I think he grew a lot as well over the offseason, especially I think he was receptive to guys on the team, and some of the feelings that guys had. Not that he hadn't been previously, but I think he made a concerted effort to get with some of the older guys like myself and some of the older guys in the program who had been around and say, what do we need to do as a program differently to get us over that hump? Because I mean, it's not a secret. The 2017, 2016, or 2016, excuse me, we lost those 3 games by what was 5 points or something like that. So it's not a secret that we've been right there. It's just what can we do? What can we change? And I think he's been extremely proactive and making changes in the weight room and the nutrition staff with Abigail, just kind of search that last little bit to get us over the hump.
what were some of the things you guys suggested? Did you suggest the conditioning change?
I'll keep that between us.
Okay.
I'll keep that between us.
Grant?
I think one of the things most of us remember that day you walked off the field after you got hurt. Like, do you ever think back and how did you do that? What was going through your mind?
A lot of adrenaline and shock. It is crazy to think about it now. But I don't know. I just, I wasn't really in any pain at the point, and I just didn't. I kept thinking, probably not anything bad. So I'm not going to freak out my mom, and I'm not going to freak out my family over nothing. So I know that was really kind of I guess it was naive, but kind of the driving thing behind that.